morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. And today we're talking about a new book, or I don't know how new it is. Saul recently received it in the mail a while ago.
I think we received it when we were away for PacificCon.
Okay.
So September 1st.
Oh, that's the one with the big map.
Yes.
It's called Flames of Freedom.
Right.
It's powered by the
Zweilander
system.
So a while ago, I kickstarted this thing.
Not a big thing in my house because he does it all the time, even though I tell him not to.
I don't have anything out. Well, I do have stuff out right now, but I haven't kickstarted anything.
He lies all the time because every time he says that, a box comes the next day.
Well, that's because that was, I don't know when the Kickstarter was. I don't have that information on top of my head, but it's been at least a year, or beginning of the year at least. So it's been a while. You know, Kickstarters don't come right away.
Okay.
So what is Flames of Freedom? It is a horror game, I guess.
Okay, before Saul starts, I'll tell you, I was looking at the reviews, and this review says, Flames of Freedom, tabletop RPG, mixes Hamilton with Stranger Things. Although, I think that's a very odd title for a review. But
it is a very odd title.
And that's not exactly but you kind of get the gist.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. It is a game that takes place during the colonial times. So obviously the reference to Hamilton during the Revolutionary War, the element of supernatural or creepy gothic horror, maybe. I don't know what they call it.
I think that's kind of what it is, because it's like most people are just going through their daily lives and everything is absolutely normal.
Right.
But if you actually look a little closer, then you might see a werewolf or a vampire or crazy things out there, right?
Right.
That's basically the game.
I think Bay is the one that told me that this game is kind of based, or is this game that will use a totally different system called American Gothic or something like that. I think Gothic horror or something like that. And Colonial Gothic. And it basically is the same world, but he rewrote the rules to fit
Zweilander.
And Zweilander, what is Zweilander? Zweilander is basically a D100 system, percentile system for skills, checks, and all that stuff. That is based on Warhammer 1st and 2nd edition.
Oh, so it's crunchy.
So, yes. So what happened was this takes place at the time of Google Plus, back in the
I don't
old
even
days.
know what that means.
Google Plus was this thing that was an experiment by Google. It was like...
Was that the one that you were on with all the weirdos? I'm sorry, the gamer guys?
Yes, dear, the weirdos. So Google Plus was unsuccessful.
Didn't you all have to move all your stuff to a different one?
Well, that's what happened, is that Google, in all its brilliance, decided to take out or end Google Plus.
Which was very heartbreaking to Saul and his friends, because they had all kinds of stuff on there, right? So they moved it over to, was it MeWe?
Well, everybody dispersed into the diaspora of social media. So it was a social media platform. It wasn't as popular as Facebook, but for gamers, the way you could store files and stuff like that was really easy for them, or they really liked it. And so it was a really popular place for gamers. I don't know about any other groups of out there, but for gamers, it was quite popular. They'd rather be on Google Plus than for Facebook, whether for political reasons or...
I don't think it had to do with political reasons. I think it had to do with convenience to them.
Right, the way things work.
Yeah. Because Google is a pretty good platform for they have all the different things. They have Google Docs and spreadsheets and all
Drive
that
and all that stuff. But this was before all that stuff, so I think. Anyway, so on Google Plus, this guy, the guy who invented the game, had his own Google Plus page, and on it he had said that he had changed or worked with Warhammer and had been changing it, basically house ruling the crap out of it until it was like...
Until he came up with his own system.
Until it was basically different. It was different enough, so he called it Chart Hammer, right?
Okay.
Is it a Warhammer?
I got it.
Chart Hammer. And he called it that. And so what happened is that when he was on Google Plus, because he had the file on it, and people kept asking for that file. So then, basically, being in the community that they were, everybody was kind of like, "Oh, you should do this, you should do that." And so he would take these ideas and some he would incorporate, and some he wouldn't. And so there was like this living document that he was cultured in this world of Google Plus. And somebody says, "Man, you should really sell this game. You should come up with your own system."
Is this Richard Ioro?
I don't know
who
is
it. Daniel D. Fox.
I think it was Daniel D. Fox.
Okay,
is the guy who did Charthammer, right? So people were really enamored with it, and they kept saying, "Well, you should take it to Kickstarter." So he goes, "Okay, well, Kickstarter, blah blah blah." But you gotta lose a Charthammer. That's a terrible name. Nobody's gonna kickstart that game, and it's a terrible name, right? Because it still references Warhammer. So it came out with Wiehlander, which I guess in German means great sword or long sword or big sword or something like that.
I would look it up. I wouldn't trust Saul on this one.
Right. So Wiehlander is a D100 system, very akin to Warhammer.
So just for those of us who don't just know what a D100 system is, I'm assuming that you are rolling 2 10-sided dice and...
Yes.
Okay. Because a 100-sided dice is really hard to come by.
There is a 100-sided die, but they roll forever, and there's always an argument of what it actually is.
Because it's so small.
It's big, but the sides are really small, so what side is the top side is always... an argument. So
2d10s is
2d10s
better.
are different colors.
Yes.
One represents the 10s and one represents
and if you really are precise about it, they have d10s that have the 0.
Yes. The 10s.
Yeah.
10s, 20, 30.
So you
40.
can have a 10-sided dice with just 1 to 10 and a 10-sided dice with the 10 to 10 to 00. Right?
Something like that. You lost me, but that's okay.
The 100, right?
Yeah. So I never thought that it would be like a system that people would use to make other games, but they came out with.
So then it's neither one of those guys because these are the guys that did Flames of Freedom.
Oh, well, Daniel D. I don't know. Anyway,
Mira,
Richard Oreo and Daniel D. Fox. I think Daniel D. Fox is the one. Hold on. I got Zoolander, so I'll go look at it.
We won't discuss all of the books on his shelves. I was sitting here playing a game on Zoom yesterday, and I looked over at the shelf and realized that he took out something and he put a bunch of gaming books there. Where the hell did those gaming books come from?
That's not fair. I'm not here to answer the question. Oh, yes. So Daniel D. Fox.
Daniel D. Fox. That's a great name, by the way. I'm sure he's a lovely man.
Lovely man. So Daniel D. Fox is probably... Well, I should look up Oreo. That's the first guy on the list. But anyway.
You can take that part out.
What was I?
Anyway, so Flames of Freedom. That's what we're doing this episode on.
So Flames of Freedom, very similar to Wielander's. Wielander's is this huge book.
They're both huge books.
Over 500 pages. And I guess Flames of Freedom wants to do a little bit more. And I think it's 650 pages. It's a lot. It's a big book.
Yesterday when Saul was telling me the stats of this book, he did it like our favorite announcer for pitchers when they come up to play for the Giants. This is Flames of Freedom, and how did you tell me how much it weighed?
No, I did not tell you. It's a 650
pager.
Yes, the mechanic is D100. A simple percentile dice. It's based on your stats. You add a skill, and that's the percentage you have to roll or under. Seems pretty simple. There is situation modifiers. They're like plus or minus 10%.
Just remember when he says it seems pretty simple, that means that there's going to be something you're going to roll the dice and then they're going to tell you have to do something else.
No, it's pretty simple. The damage is based on your stat that you have. Like if it's based on your strength, it's based on the tens of the tens number of your attributes. It's if you have a 45, then your strength bonus for damage is 4. Right?
Wow. And coming from the D&D world, a 45 in strength is pretty big.
Remember, it's percentiles.
Okay.
So that's why the numbers are so high. So the higher the number of your whatever you have, then the better, right? It adds this thing called Fury Dice, which kind of gives it element of excitement.
They explode.
Yes. So much like, what is it?
Feng Shui.
Feng Shui?
Has the exploding dice.
Does it? Also does Savage Worlds is what it really.
Oh, that's what. Okay.
Basically, if you roll the highest number on the die,
maybe it's not Feng Shui.
The highest number on the die. In this case, it's only a D6. If you roll a 6, you can re-roll that 6 and add it to the total.
Which is when Jolene says, "I hope we're playing on roll 20 because I don't want to figure all that out."
It's not that difficult unless you keep rolling 6s. Then you got to keep adding all those 6s.
That's 6 times 10. I can do that one.
Yeah. A timestamp, just 6 plus 6 plus 6 for every 6 that you roll.
So if you roll 10 sixes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a lot of sixes. Hardly, I don't think that's really possible, but.
So then 6 times 4. As long as you know your times tables, you're okay.
No, that you can actually roll 6.
4 times.
10 times in a row.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so that's an element that they use to make it so you can do like one-shot kills and stuff. Probably doesn't happen very often, but it could if you're very lucky. There's a lot of option for players, right? When I told Jolene how many archetypes that you could pick to make your character. So to make your character is super easy as far as the stats. It's you roll 3 10s, add 25. Bada bing, bada boom. Just like the old days, like D&D, you roll 3 6-sided dice for each stat. In this case, you roll 3 10-siders and add 25 to it, and that's your.
So you should have pretty good stats with that, with three. Unless you roll ones, then you know.
So the attributes in this game are combat, brawn, agility, perception, intelligence, willpower, and fellowship. So that covers almost any all the different
interpersonal things that go on.
Yeah, and you have your physical things, right?
Yeah.
The Fury dice is for luck. A lot of options. So after you got your character, you get to pick what. Well, there's other things, but you get one of the big things. You get to pick the archetype, and basically that's like your job, or that's what you do in colonial times, right? I think a lot of these came because of Kickstarter goals were met, because there's 75 archetypes.
Which, in my opinion, and I've only played this game once, and I think it was before the book came out. Was twice. I played it. No, I didn't play it twice. I played it once.
You played it with me, and then you played it with Bay.
No, I didn't play it with Bay.
Oh,
because he wanted to use the rules.
Wow.
The crunchy rules.
It was good though.
I understand, but I'm just going to tell you right now that 75 archetypes is a lot. For me, I don't remember having that choice.
No, that was pre-made. That's why.
Okay.
Correct.
But it just, that seems like a lot, because when you're making a character, that's a lot of stuff to read. So I would decide kind of what you want to be and just look at those.
Right. I mean, I think that's the best way to do it. 75 archetypes is a lot. An archetype is basically like, it gives you your skills and it gives you bonuses to your stats.
Because I'm just saying that if Steve May, and I'm using his name because he knows this already, was to look at this book to make a character, he would literally have to read all 75 of them. And then he would have that analysis paralysis of trying to decide what he really wants, right? So if you're going to go into it and look at all 75, I'm going to say, have your character made, know what you want to be, and then just kind of glance at 3 of them or something, because that's a lot to go through.
Well, you probably the best thing. What I would do is I would just give people the list and which sounds something like you might do, right? Because some things are not anything you want to do.
Yeah, you don't want to be the doctor, or you don't want to be
For example, I mean, they get pretty nitty-gritty. 75 is a lot, right? So you can be an artist, a apothecary.
I think he's right. You could give them
gambler,
a list, because then they're going to narrow it down
fur
quickly.
trader. Somebody who does a message runner on a horse. So there's all these. I mean, and some of them are like, I don't. They're not even interesting to certain people.
I wouldn't want to be a fur trader.
Fur trader, right? So I mean, 75 is a lot, and so guerrilla war fighter and all these other things. So some of them, I would say, half of them you could easily just say, okay, I'm not even interested in that, and then basically you could probably have like, I think you could work the list down to like 5 that you're kind of interested in. Oh, I like to play this type of character.
Or you could say, I want to be a fighter, and then the GM could say, okay, here's the 5 that might fit that profile.
Correct. Right.
That'll be a session 0, I'm telling you people.
Definitely. So Jolene doesn't like the fact that there's too many.
It's not that I don't like it, it's just that I find it intimidating.
So with that many choices, I think a player can find a character archetype that they would like to play.
I would hope so.
I would hope so. I mean, and that's a lot. I mean, it does get pretty specific. I mean, there's some, like a writer, like.
I understand why if he made this a Kickstarter thing where people told him what they would like if certain goals were met, I can see that, because it's like, and just D&D is always coming out with new, each version of D&D is always coming out with new character classes, right, that you can be.
Well, even the what is it, the they're not splat books, but the editions like Xanthar's Guide and
always have extra.
They come up with extra characters, even races that people can be. So
and
rules
people
expansions.
love that. Yeah. People love that. So I can see
games
why
not so much. Players love it.
Yeah. So where does that one come from? Because I gotta get that book now.
Yeah, that's it's always a pain in the butt. So 650 pages. There's a lot in this book, right?
Well, 75 of those are going to be about the characters. So
right. So 75 off the bat. Each archetype is 1 page. Woo, that's 75 pages right there. There's also skills. So it has 18 skills, right? And each skill is talked about and gives examples of and blah blah blah. So that's another so many pages. I don't remember. I didn't count them. And I would consider this a crunchy system. I would. The way it plays, the way it runs. But combat, for people who think it's ridiculous, it is literally 10 pages of combat rules. 5.5 pages of that is charts. Now, it's not charts that you have to look up. No. These are like crit charts, like if you roll really well or you get take too much damage.
I'd print those out.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I'll put them on your GM screen or whatever. So those crit charts, you probably won't need them all the time, but
so just him telling me about the crit charts reminds me of space opera, because that's where I first
crit charts. So that still leaves what is the rest of the book, right? And so there's also rules of how to play. What is a role playing game? All that stuff that you got to get out of the way. Sometimes I wish they wouldn't put that in, but somebody who never played might want to pick up a 650 page role-playing game and try to play it. Probably not, that's what I was guessing. But anyway, so they put that in there. So, there's a little bit of page taken away for that stuff. How things work, how to do skill checks and stuff like that. That's an important part of the game. So there's rules about that. There's also rules about coins. It's like a coin is like a Benny, plot point, or whatever you want to call it from different games. It basically is like a save my ass coin. Right, you can re-roll a roll that you just did, stuff like that. That's the power of the coin.
Which, if you play games a lot, that's an important thing to have.
Yeah. So it basically it's kind of like a save your butt.
It's like when Saul puts the poker chips that he bought, yes, the square ones out on the table. That's when you know that you're going to need them, because if he's giving them to you, you're probably going to need them.
Well, like almost all games have it, like Star Trek, and the 2D20 system.
The dice pool.
Savage Worlds has them. I don't think Tales from the Loop has them. No. But anyway, a lot of modern games, a lot of role-playing games now have them. They've called different things.
And as a GM, you could always put them out there anyway. If your players roll ones all the time, it might be nice.
Yeah. So they're able to, I think they start off a game with one, maybe. Yeah. And then, so there's rules about that. The bulk of the rules is setting, obviously, right? Because basically, a lot of people don't know about colonial or the revolutionary period, basically. And which I am a little bit, as a U.S. historian, I'm a little bit faulty in that part. But I do remember reading quite a bit more than your average person about the Revolutionary War, because I had to cover it in my U.S. history studies.
Also, your political science studies.
Oh, there's that too. And yeah, that's true. So I know quite a bit about the political side of it, with Thomas Paine and all the people who incited the revolution and why they did the things they did, at least the political reasons, right? And but a lot of the culture stuff, the stuff that the way life was, I really not really know too much about it. So this game has a rather large section about life in colonial times, revolutionary period. Then there's life during the war, right? That's a really big section. And because it takes place during the revolutionary period, where Native Americans, First Nations, the people who were here before the Europeans came, they were a huge part of the Revolutionary War. I mean, they were used as allies. They were to certain groups. And so what I thought was really interesting is that this game takes the time and the space to talk about each different nation and their culture and how they differ. Even within the Native American tribes, obviously there was differences in cultures and obviously the differences on their beliefs. So this book takes the time to talk about many of the tribes that were in that area.
You could watch Last of the Mohicans to kind of get a...
Well, they talk about Mohicans and they talk about how which is interesting because I didn't know that, but what I didn't know is that the Mohicans were actually pushed out of there previously, and so the natives that were there were not Mohicans, but I forget what tribe, but because they were pushed around and by the United States government here and there, these true tribes basically now see themselves as one. I forget what the name of the other tribe is. Every tribe of that area is not every tribe, but the major tribes are talked about and given space.
You're talking about all up and down the East Coast.
Right. Correct. So I think that was pretty neat. I think it's pretty interesting instead of just saying, well, lumping all Native Americans into one group. Well,
I don't think you can really do that anymore if you're going to put out a gaming book with that particular subject matter in it. You're going to need to have a cultural person or, do your homework, culture. Yeah. You're going to need to have people from those tribes or those peoples talk to you.
Or be involved in the creation of the book.
So that you can make sure,
And that's exactly what he did. He had a cultural consultants and or writers of those tribes write stuff for the
I'm sure
book.
People will still criticize you, but at least you did your...
Right. So I think that's important. You look at some books made 10, I was going to say 20, 30 years ago, obviously, but even 10 years ago, they didn't take that into consideration. They would just lump all Native American tribes in one group. Unless you talk about like the Lakota, right? Or the Iroquois nation.
But they don't necessarily... It depends on where you grew up and what history that you were taught. So, I mean, in the United States, where you grew up in the United States probably influenced your ideas of how the Native Americans were, right? Because you were taught, like in California, they talk about what are the ones in Monterey County? He's giving me a blank.
I'm drawing a blank. I forget what they were called.
But anyway, if you grew up in the Northeast, you'll learn a lot about the Iroquois.
Right.
And all of those kind of different things. Well, see what I'm saying?
Yeah. The problem with the Native American tribes of California is that they weren't... obviously, what the problem was is that living was too good here, right? They didn't have to build huge structures.
Well, by the time the United Statesians, or I can't even say that. Yes, the United Statesians came through, although they weren't quite the United Statesians at the time.
The Western Europeans?
Well, no, because the Spanish had already come up and down the coast, so then a lot of the natives were
they're already dead. Yeah, due to disease, right?
So yeah, but my point is that it depends on where you grow up, your history and stuff, because like people that aren't from the United States or may have false ideas about things. Like I was just speaking to someone who didn't realize the Aztecs and Incas were not the same people. So
yeah, that's funny.
So and some people may not know that, right? That they're from
the Mayans, right? Mayans were at least in Mexico. Well, they were in Mexico.
Well, and then there's the tribe that Saul's people come from, the Otomi. When they saw the Aztecs coming, they just left and went higher up into the mountains.
Those people are crazy. They said, and there's a whole bunch of them. That's what it was. Yeah, we don't want our hearts cut out. So so they did leave the area.
So there's all kinds of different Native Americans and different cultures. So it's kind of important to
recognize that,
it, and to try to get it correct by having those people help you with it.
Yeah, I think, what was I going to say? Some people take criticism of that too. I think, unfortunately, there was this list going around of RPG companies that were too woke, right? And unfortunately, this publisher got on that list because he cared too much he hired too many consultants.
Well, then that list should just be burned, okay? I'm sorry.
Well, regardless of what that list, I think I thought it was kind of strange because when I read this book and I was looking at it, I'm like, what's so what's so offensive other than taking different people's
views
history
into consideration,
right? And I thought it was pretty neat taking a few American Indian, they call it American Indian classes back in the day, and it was really enlightening. There's all kinds of questions of how many natives lived here. It depends on different experts say different numbers. But another thing I liked about this book is, so that takes a few pages, quite a few pages of the book. Then there's the GM section, which tells you how to run a colonial game or revolutionary game. And then there's the GM secret stuff, right? That has all the weird stuff that's happening, the machinations because
it is a gothic.
It's a gothic horror, right? Yeah. All these things are happening. There was a show called was it Sleepy Hollow?
Yeah, Sleepy Hollow.
Where this guy comes back from
Ichabod
the dead,
Crane.
Ichabod Crane, right? So in that show, Ichabod Crane was like this. Not only was he Ichabod Crane, but he was involved in this nefarious. Not involved, but
no, he was a spook, a spy,
and so there was this secret group of people who were trying to thwart American government and stuff like that, and it involved the occult and all that stuff. So it kind of reminds me of this game. Is similar of is trying to emulate. If you're looking for a TV show that kind of represents this kind of a theme or what's going on, that's a pretty cool show to watch when they go back in time and deal with that time period.
Not in the
modern day time.
That wouldn't help.
There's also Adversaries. Now, I thought this was pretty interesting. Instead of calling it a monster section, because Adversaries are monsters. Some of them ghosts, golems, all the typical stuff that you might find in a gothic horror thing. And then there's just people like redcoats, redcoat spy, redcoat master, and all this other stuff. Freemasons are bad evil guys in this thing.
Oh, really?
Because they're working against the United States. Oh, according to this myth.
Okay, that's the alternate history. Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah. So sorry to all the Freemasons out there. Actually,
all the people with that watch Nicolas Cage movies and
treasure.
What's it National Treasure.
National Treasure. Yes. So that's a very huge section, and then there's a bibliography, which I thought was amazing because, like, being that we both are masters in history and stuff. We deal with bibliographies all the time. Bibliographies are important to historians or any scholar, actually, if you're political science or any kind of academics. And this guy's bibliography is amazing. I mean, there is books that I have on my shelves for United States history. There's books on my shelves that have to do with original sources, which are very important to historians.
Especially ancient and medieval historians.
Well, even United States historians.
That's true. So
it is, I forgot how many pages, at least 6 pages of bibliography notes.
That's a good bibliography.
Yeah, it's a good bibliography. And if you want to know more about stuff of that time period, some of those are really good books. And I was really impressed by that. I mean, I think that what that means to me is that this guy used a lot of information. He did research, right? He did research, not just look stuff up on the internet. No, not that research. He actually probably got the books and looked at them and see what they said. And I think it was pretty interesting. And I think it shows in the way this game is put together that the person who wrote this book.
Well, you would think about, if you think about it, if you're putting in historical actual details to tell people what's going on, you would have to have a bibliography, because otherwise you could get into trouble.
Well, I mean, otherwise you just don't know where this guy's coming from, right?
Yeah.
And you can look up stuff and with the information that he has, what was at his disposal. So after the bibliography, which is not at the end of the book, which is amazing, is, of course, you have like
the index.
No, not yet. No, not yet. So there's like the character sheets. There's sheets, because it is a country system. There's sheets about overland travel, helper, like a tracker and stuff. And then there's maps of the area, different maps, period specific looking. When I look at maps, I look at Google Maps. I look at maps on the internet. And sometimes if you're looking for a specific type of map, like I'm currently looking at World War II maps, and using the Google Earth for World War II just doesn't work, right? Because there's huge cities where there was nothing before in World War II, especially in France.
But I'm sure if you use the Google Maps and you go to France, then you could go from there and find older maps.
Right, but it's pretty difficult. But instead of doing that, these guys just put those maps, and there's quite a few of them. It's not like 1 or 2 maps. There's like 5, 6, almost 10 pages of maps.
This is the one that you got, that big map, that cloth map.
Yeah, which was amazing. It is amazing. And then the end of the book.
The index?
The index, right. So all that, also there is a large map of the East Coast that's glued to the back of the back cover. Not glued, but
it's the back cover.
No, it's actually a map that
you
can pull out and take out of the book, which I have not done that because
he wouldn't want to hurt the book.
Yeah, I wouldn't hurt the book. And I got the cloth map one. So the Kickstarter was amazing because I paid like $80 or something like that for the all in. But all in was just the book. The book itself is like Oh,
it's $65.
$65?
Yeah.
Okay. So $65, $15 for extra for whatever. So what I got was the coins. I got a set of dice, the cloth map, which alone, that thing probably run $50-$60, but which I thought was kind of amazing. So it was a pretty good deal. I don't know if you can even find those maps, that cloth map on sale, but it's huge. I thought it was like going to be like something that could fit on the end of a table. No, it'll fit on the whole table. So it's pretty cool. A very well run campaign, very well put together book. It has a ribbon for it, a nice red ribbon to save your place marker on. I did run it. They had a free quick start rules. I ran that. It was really fun. I thought it went really well. I did ignore the crunchy rules because you get AP, which is not AP. So you get points to do your actions, right? And I ignored that. I just said, I did like the D&D style. You go, I go, you go, I go. And then later on, we played with Bay, and he incorporated those points. And and it's a crunchy system. There's no way you can get around that. But one of my co-players that was playing with us, Morgan, he goes, I think if I were to play this game, I would want to run it using the G20, the Roll20 G20, the Roll20 character sheet where it rolls all the dice and handles all the crunchy stuff where you just click on,
right,
I want to roll a hit, and it does all the damage and stuff. So I thought that was pretty interesting comment that he said. I think there's some people out there who already play games, even though they're face-to-face, they use, what is that one for D&D? I forget the name of it. But anyway, it's like a character sheet, but also does all the dice rolling and stuff. You could use Roll20. You could open Roll20 and use the dice rolling in the character sheets, and instead of rolling dice, I know people. Is
the character sheet created on Roll20?
Yes.
Okay, then yes. It's not like the Shadowrun character sheet that someone put up there, and it took us a long time to figure out.
Oh yeah. No, I think I don't know if Daniel Day Fox.
Mm-hmm. Daniel D. Fox.
Daniel Day. You're some actor. Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
No, I don't know how it works. I know you could definitely hire some team to do it. You can probably hire Roll20 team to make a character sheet, so it looks nice. It does all the bells and whistles and works good. And other times it's a labor of love by somebody out there who can code.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the Shadowrun one, because it was for 5th edition. It was a little glitchy, and
it may not have been glitchy, but you have to know where you're putting your numbers into. Right. Is the thing. And Shadowrun's very hard, so I don't know how hard this one is.
Yeah, no, this one was a lot easier.
Okay.
And it's not as crunchy as Shadowrun.
But, if you're face-to-face, if you're lucky enough to be playing face-to-face with people, it's okay to get the dice out and the little charts and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Morgan was saying that because he doesn't want to get into the whole
He doesn't want to have to do the crunchiness, yeah.
So he'd rather just play with the Roll20,
which I find interesting because Morgan loves to read the rules and figure out how it works.
That's true.
But I can also understand. I don't like the crunchiness. If there's a chart that I have to look up something on, it sometimes is frustrating.
Right. So all in all, I think this is a really well put together game. The rules are really good. If you like crunchiness, if you don't like crunchy, if you like Fate Accelerated, and that's about as much as you can stand in crunch, this system is probably not for you, but the world that it takes place in is pretty amazing, I think, and can be very educational, right? Because you can learn quite a bit from the information that's in this book.
And if you have a really good GM that already knows the system and the rules, then it'll be less crunchy for you. I mean, it'll still be crunchy, but they'll tell you exactly what you need to roll.
Right. I think any system, even 5th edition Shadowrun, I think, which this one isn't as complicated because there's not different systems for different characters. You learn it, right? People think that D&D is crunchy, and people think that certain other games are crunchy. Like, well, we played it. We like Space Opera. We played it. I ran it. For years and years, and to the point where after a while it was like, oh, this is no problem here. This is I hit. I'm gonna try to hit. Well, what kind of army? It just happens automatically. It's like not automatically, but it happens quite easily.
Whatever you learn, you're gonna learn it, right? And then it'll be easier to play.
So I think this one isn't quite a huge steep learning curve, but for modern game it is a little bit. I think they're coming out. They came out. They had a Kickstarter for this one called Blackbird, which I did not kickstart. It was a dark fantasy set of rules, so I thought it was not my bag. I do actually think about games that I could possibly put on the table, and if there's no possible way I think there's no possible way it's gonna be on the table. I can get it to the table. I'm not gonna kickstart it.
I'm pretty sure that's not true by looking at my bookshelf.
None of those are Kickstarters, and some of those were like finds from the flea market, gamer flea markets. So if you like the setting, if you like the set of rules from Zoolander, this is a no-brainer to buy. I mean, it's really interesting. It's pretty cool setting.
The setting is very cool. I really liked it.
And you can actually use real-life events in the setting, right? And there's tons of stories out there, and there's tons of information, especially from that time period, because it was a time. Yeah. Everybody wrote everything down, and so it was pretty. I
don't know about everybody writing everything down, but a lot of it was.
There's a lot of information out there, unlike, let's say,
and there's a lot of novels about that time.
Right. So. Right. Even TV shows. So Zoolander, powered Flames of Freedom. There is a little thing in the beginning about diversity, about things that might make people queasy about reading it, as far as like.
That's their problem.
Right? It's an important point about diversity, about playing African Americans in this game, playing gender identity issues in this game, and he specifically states that if you're basically a bigot and all that stuff, this game is not for you. It's encouraged to play people of different races, people of mixed race and stuff like that. So I think it's an important part to put in the beginning of the book. Some people may not like it, but I think it's the way the world is going in that direction. A lot of interesting stories you can play from this set of rules, from this setting. Adding a little bit of the occult and Gothic horror, American Gothic horror, is pretty neat.
There you go. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
You have a good day.